Hello students, how are you? Hope you all are fine. So students, as in our previous video, we have studied our geography first chapter, the environment. Now today we are going to start our history book which name is Our Past Part 2. Before going to start the first chapter, let's have a look upon the syllabus. The first chapter is Tracing Changes Through 1,000 Years. The second chapter is New Kings and Kingdoms. The third chapter, the Delhi Sultanate. The fourth chapter, the Mughal Empire. The fifth chapter is Rulers and Buildings. The sixth chapter is Town Traders and Craft Persons. The seventh chapter is Tribals, Nomads and Settled Communities. The eighth chapter is Devotional Paths to the Divine. The ninth chapter is the making of regional cultures. And the last chapter is 18th century political formations. So students, before going to start the chapter Tracing Changes Through 1,000 Years, let's see the subtopics of the chapter. First, introduction of the chapter. Second, cartography. Third, new and old terminologies. Fourth, historians and their sources. Fifth, new social and political groups. Sixth, region and empires. Old and new religions. And the last, thinking about time and historical period. Students, as we know, history is divided into three parts: ancient, medieval, and modern history. In your previous class, you have studied about the ancient history. Now, in this class, you are going to study the medieval part of Indian history, which started from the 6th century to 13th century and late medieval till 16th century. The chapter Tracing Changes Through 1,000 Years is talking about the middle part of medieval history, in which we are going to see the changes during the medieval part of medieval history. Students, here are two maps of India and both are different. One is of 12th century and the second one is of early 18th century. Now, you are thinking why these maps are not similar. So students, this is because their cartographers are different. So the question is, who is a cartographer? The cartographer is a person who makes map. And cartography is the study and practice of making maps. Students, as you can see, here a cartographer is visible in the screen. He is Anaximander, the first cartographer of the world. Some other cartographers are Al-Idrisi and Guillaume d'Isard. So, for these maps, we can say that the science of cartography differed in two periods. When historians read documents, maps, and texts from the past, they have to be sensitive to the different historical background. So let's know how past was different in two periods and in which information about the past was produced. So for the answer of that question, we will see our next topic, new and old terminology. Students, here is a word terminology. What does it mean? Terminology is the term usually refers to records and documents created during the period that is being studied, such as diaries, letters, legal documents, photographs, and artifacts. Historians have to check the meanings of the words they use as they change from time to time. For example, let us take the example Hindustan. Minhaj-e-Siraj represented it as Hindustan, while in the 14th century, Amir Khusro represented it as Hind, and today we know it as India or Bharat. The term Hindustan did not carry the political and national meaning which we associate with it today. Historians have to be careful about the terms they use because they meant different things in the past. Take for another example, a term like foreigner, it is used today to mean someone who is not an Indian. But in the medieval period, a foreigner was someone who was not a part of that society or culture, like Pardesi or Ajnabi. Historians used different types of sources to learn about the past. So let us know what those sources were. The historians rely upon coins, inscriptions, architecture, and manuscripts for information. At the medieval time, the paper was available very rarely, and only religious books and manuals were written on it. Only rich and wealthy people had access to the manuscripts, which were kept in libraries or archives houses. The information in these manuscripts was written in great details that only the manuscript writers or historians could understand. There was no printing press at the medieval time, so those manuscripts were copied by hand. If you have ever copied a friend's homework, you would know that this is not simple exercise. There are small but significant differences in your copy of your friend's copywork. Manuscript copying is somewhat similar. As scribes copied manuscripts, they also introduced small changes like a word here, a sentence there. And due to these changes, there was some variation in the manuscripts. So, due to this lack of time and the main manuscripts are not available, we are depend on these copied manuscripts. There is an such chronicle Ziauddin Barni who wrote the history of his time in 14th century. But despite a gap of 2 years, there are many differences in these two chroniques. Students, the study of the 1000 years is a huge challenge to historians, largely because of the scale and variety of development that occurred over the period. So, to know how and who made these changes and developments, we will move forward to the next topic, social and political groups.